Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Sheila. You guys already know. Um, and this video, this Zoom is just going to talk about two things. One, your citations, so your annotated bibliographies, your works cited. It's really an annotated bib because you have to do the written portion underneath the works cited. And two, we're also going to cover the literature review, and hopefully it sets your minds at ease. Okay, so let's cover the work citation first. So I have graded the work cited, the annotated bibliography, sorry. I have graded the annotated bibliographies. You have your grades up there. If you received a 4, typically you didn't receive a comment. I gave you the full grade because I found no error in your annotated bibs. I did give credit to some individuals, even if they did make mistakes, and I told them um, websites to visit to correct those errors in their final research proposals. So, in regards to the work cited, so if you received any grade lower than a 4, you always have the option of doing that over again. But let me share my screen. I do want to show you where to go to edit your works cited, your annotated bibliographies. Sorry. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Share screen. And hopefully you guys see this. Okay. So right now we are on the Purdue Education website, Purdue OWL, whatever you prefer to call it. But this is a website that students, college students, high school students, any students can go to help them with their written assignments. Um, so not just AI, but to help them with their written assignments. So because this is a psychology class, it is listed under the psychology concentration here at NACC. Your work needs to be written in APA format. That is the format for psychology students, scholars, etc. Um, I am used to the sociological um, format. Um, and that is ASA. Purdue has a version of the ASA on this site as well. But for this class specifically, you need the APA format. So here, I will provide the link in the description of the video once I upload it. So you guys can have access to it. I'll put it on our Blackboard website as well. But here on the Purdue website, you will be able to find how to cite your books, your articles, electronic videos, blogs, audios, etc. So they do have how to cite in-text citations. So once you start writing that literature review and you cite pieces of work, you'll be able to get info as to how to cite the authors as seen here. Let me just move my face. Sorry. But yeah, you will also get the rules and instructions on how to cite articles and periodicals, articles in newspapers, books, other printed types of resources, electronic sources. So we're how to cite YouTube videos, how to cite videos on the New York Times, audio visuals and media, and other printed sources. Okay. So, one of the things that I did see and I needed to write notes to some of the individuals in the class was that a lot of people were using the full names of the authors, and or the authors. And you only need the full last name in all of the citations, but you only need the full last name and then the abbreviation of the first name. And it's usually followed by the year and then whatever the title of the article is, and then the edition or whatever. I hope that puts to rest the annotated bibliography, and I hope this site helps you as well. So let me stop sharing. The next and the last thing that I do want to go over for your class is the literature review and how to get started on writing a literature review. Okay. And there's going to be parts to a literature review. So there's going to be an introduction to the literature review. So most literature reviews use a basic introduction. And that introduction, again, is part of the larger paper. But yeah, there's going to be an introduction. There's going to be a body of the paper. The body is going to summarize the sources, and you're going to use a minimum of 3 sources, but for your research proposal for your literature review. But it's going to summarize those sources. This is going to make up the majority of your literature review, but it's going to summarize the sources, give the main points of the sources. You're going to be able to add your own interpretations in the body of the paper, discuss the significance of the findings. You're going to hopefully mention the strengths of the papers as well as the weaknesses of the articles. And the body needs to be well structured. Okay. And then the other portion of the literature review is going to be the conclusion of the literature review, not the proposal, but the conclusion of the literature review. And once again, you're going to summarize the key findings you've taken away from the literature review, and you're going to emphasize the significance. And then you're going to connect it back to your research question, which is going to be in the introductory paragraph of your literature review, as well as the introduction of the paper. Okay, so let's begin that. Okay, so this should take just a bit of your time to watch this, but let's use an example from our class. Okay, so our class 2025, let's use an example from our paper, our students in the class. So I'm just going to pick a student and let me hide the name and then share the screen. Okay. So hopefully you guys see this. Let me move my face over here. Okay, so this is an example from our current class. Pardon if I look down, it's just me kind of just like writing notes as we do this. So again, this is the section where I'm going to teach you how to write this literature review, okay? So let's read the proposed research that this student in the class is wants to focus on. So for my research proposal, I would like to study the impact of social media usage on mental health. More specifically, focusing on the relationship between too much screen time and the development of depression and anxiety. This is a very important topic to look into as it is very relevant to psychology today. Because as more and more people grow up with social media and less is known about the social media effects, how social media affects development. These kinds of studies can help lawmakers and parents make informed decisions on what is safe for children and what kinds of regulations should be made or updated to further protect our children and our future society. Good question. Good research question. Relevant research question. Interesting research question. And if you've kept up with our main reader by Paul Price, you know that this research question is a go. So good research question. Could the question or could the paragraph be formatted better? Yes. And definitely, if you know that this is your research question, fix this. Just fix it. So never start a sentence with because. And there's just a couple of places where I have issues with, but good question. So we have the question. So let's start with the introductory paragraph of the literature review, okay? So the introductory paragraph of the literature review, again, remember that this student is focusing on the relationship between excessive screen time and the development of depression and anxiety. So the introductory paragraph needs to explain the working topic. The introductory paragraph of the literature review needs to explain the thesis. So this paragraph here could actually be used as the introductory paragraph if it's just reformatted, okay? So the introductory paragraph also should forecast key topics and texts that will appear in the review. And then you may also want to, this is just a suggestion, but you may also want to include a description of how you found sources and how you analyze them to be included in the body, but you don't have to. So again, this specific paragraph here that the student submitted for assignment A1 can actually be used as the introductory paragraph of the literature review, but just make sure that you explain your thesis. And we got the thesis, right? We know what is going to be looked at, and it is excessive screen time and its links to the development of anxiety and depression, and key topics, okay, that will appear in the literature review. And for those of you who are wondering what key topics, we know that social media's effects on development is going to be explored, obviously. We know that this student should also talk about, after going through the annotations and using them in the body of the paragraph, should also reference how these studies would be beneficial to lawmakers and parents, etc. Good with the introductory paragraph? I hope we are. Okay. The body. Now, this is going to take the majority of your time. This is probably going to be the most time you'll spend on a section of a paper, because the literature review is it's not easy. It's not necessarily easy, but that's why I want you to get used to doing these things. So this is where your annotated bibs come in play. Maybe I should find the student's annotated bib. Let me pause and find the student's annotated bib for a quick second. This student doesn't actually have an annotated bib. Didn't submit one, but that's okay. We can still use the research question. So, yeah, let's do the body of his paper. So just keep in mind that his research question is looking at the excessive use of social media and its link to anxiety and depression. Okay, so that's the thesis. Okay, so if the student had an annotated bibliography, we would start looking at the sources. Okay, and I would say take one source, read through all of the sources, but let's start taking one source at a time. Remember that an annotated bibliography, hold on just a second. Just remember that a literature review, not an annotated bibliography, but a literature review is not a summary. Okay, it's not a summary, but it's like a critical analysis of all the existing, not all, but most of the existing work, the scholarly research on your topic. Okay, so this literature review is going to demonstrate to me and potential readers of your paper your understanding of your field, of your topic, and that literature review at the end should also justify your research question, your thesis. So keep that in mind, okay? So the body, okay? You're going to need, for your literature review this semester, going to need to use a minimum of 3 of those annotated resources. So 3, okay? The first one, and you're going to use hopefully these steps for all the remaining 2. So minimum of 3, but I'm going to show you how to do the first annotation, or not the first annotation, but the first kind of synthesis of that first piece of research in your body. Okay, so you're going to take that first research, you're going to then, that article, that book, you're going to summarize it, you're going to synthesize it. Give us an overview of what the article was looking at. What was it exploring? What were the main points? What were they exploring? What were the main points? What was the significance of the findings? Significance of the findings. Yeah, okay. So what were they trying to find? So for your first article that you're going to use in the body, what were the authors trying to find? What were the main points? What were some of the significant findings? Okay. The next thing, and that could take a paragraph, right? So that would take a paragraph. The next paragraph that I would want you guys to write after you've summarized your first article, your first piece of work, I want you then to destroy it. When I say destroy it, I want you to critically evaluate it, right? So I want you to mention the strengths and the weaknesses of that piece of work. Okay, what did the authors explore? Why was this piece of work good? What did that paper lack? What did that research miss? How was it weak? Okay. And then I want you to transition, right? When I say transition, I want you to relate all of this back. So your overall synthesis of that research, your evaluation of that research, the strengths and weaknesses, and then I want you to relate it back to your specific topic. Okay. So how does that first piece of research now relate back to your research topic? Make some comparisons, some connections, and contrasts if you need to, right? So if you're going to contrast it, tell us why this piece of research is also it's still useful for your project. I hope that makes sense. Okay. The next article that you've put in your annotated bib, right? You're going to now do a brand new paragraph. And again, you're going to synthesize it. Give me an overview of the entire article, the book, the blog, etc. Give me the main points, etc. The next paragraph, I want you to rip it apart, critically evaluate it. So just in case, with each annotation in your body of work, there'd be approximately 3 paragraphs for each source that you're going to go over. The first paragraph is going to be the synthesis. This is the summary. I don't like using the term summary, but this is the summary of the article, the book, etc. You're going to give the main points. Okay. You're going to discuss the findings. Discuss the findings. And you're also going to relate you're going to summarize the main points, you're going to discuss the findings. That's the first part. Okay. So for the first piece of research, step 1 is to synthesize. So give me a summary of that piece of research, give me the main points, discuss the findings. Second paragraph is going to, you're going to evaluate. You're going to, and again, you're going to destroy it. You're going to discuss the weaknesses, strengths first, but strengths and weaknesses of that research. Okay. Discuss the strengths and research, the weaknesses of that source. And then 3 is you're going to transition. Okay. Which just means, I'm just meaning that you're going to then link what you've just told me in 1 and 2, right? You're going to draw connections, link it back to your research question. Okay. You're done with the first source. Do the exact same steps with source 2 and source 3. Hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense, okay? When you're done, again, it will take some time. When you're done, you are then going to do the conclusion of the literature review. Maybe okay. So the conclusion is just going to summarize the findings, the takeaways that you have gathered from the literature that you've just gone over in your literature review. You're going to then connect it back to your thesis question. Okay? So once again, there are 3 parts to the literature review. One is the introduction, the literature review introduction, which is the literature introduction, sorry, which is just an introductory paragraph that explains your topic, your research question. You're going to forecast key topics that will appear in your literature review. The second portion of the literature review is going to be the body. This is where you're going to go over 3, at minimum 3 sources. With each source, you're going to have to do 3 steps. One is the synthesis, where you're going to summarize the article, the first article, where you're going to summarize an article, give the main points, give me the findings. The second part of the body, the second part of, how do I say it? Of going over that first source is going to be the evaluation. You're going to discuss the strengths and the weaknesses of that research. You're going to destroy it. And then the third one is going to be the transition, where you're going to link what you've just gone over in step 1 and 2 back to your main research question. You're going to do those exact same steps for source 2 and 3. Once you're done with that, you are then going to do the literary conclusion, where you're just going to, once again, just summarize the key findings that you've taken from your literature review, and emphasize their significance. Connect it once again back to your research question. I hope that makes sense for you guys. Please set up meetings with me for this semester if you want to go over specifically your research question. Sound good? I will see you later, and I will upload this as soon as I can. Bye.